Thank you. Let's get this started, but real quick before I delve into what I'm going to say, I want to thank the people behind Creative Market, Noah, Lauren, the rest of the crew. They've been doing this every month for a long time, and they produce a very cool event, a lot of work behind the scenes. So how about a round of applause for the Creative Mornings crew? Thanks, guys. All right. So the topic of this month is called Rise. And before, I want to share a little story behind that, but what I want to do is I want to set the agenda, what we're going to do for the next 30 minutes. I'm going to have Lexi and Keola come join me here in a little bit. But before I bring them up, I wanted to kind of share a personal story of my relationship with the word rise, today's theme. Does that work? Does that sound good? All right. So give you a little backstory. As Garrett mentioned, I do have a nonprofit called Rise High. It's number one. I run a marketing boutique agency here in Hawaii called Rise Media Group. Okay, so you see a theme. And if my second child was a girl, her name would have been Rise. But it was a boy, his name's Bear. So, true story. So, you can see I have this close relationship to this word rise. But I want to share our personal stories, and I'm going to, bear with me, there's a athletic lens to this story. And I know in the audience we have more of a creative field here, but I believe there's parallels between the two. But I want to take you way back, way back, okay? I'm going to date myself. I'm going to take you back to the fall of 1995, right? And I've seen some of that crowd, and some of you are not even born yet, right? But this was my junior year in high school, the start of my junior year in high school, and I went to a school called St. Louis School, which is not too far away from here. And St. Louis has been known as like a football factory, a football juggernaut, and I played football there. And I say I played football my junior year, but you probably could have categorized me more as a cheerleader, because basically my junior year, I was on the sideline for the first 3 quarters of the game watching my teammates play, and I was cheerleading on the side. And then if we were up enough against our team, right, then I'd get the opportunity to play in some garbage time and get on the field. And so that's kind of how my junior year of high school football went. Luckily, you know, the seniors left, and my senior year I had an opportunity to play, and I started throughout my senior year. But I was never considered like an impact player, right? And my dream was to play Division I football. And so when my senior year ended and I didn't get any Division I football scholarships, I had to kind of look through my options. And the best option I thought was this small school in Northern California in the Bay Area, was a Division III school called Menlo College. And I decided to go there for 2 reasons. Number one, they had a football team. And number 2, there was a bunch of other local kids that were going there. And for me to go away to school, I felt like I had the safety net of other local kids there. So it felt like it was at home. And I knew if I wanted to play, I grew up every Saturday morning waking up excited to watch college football, and I knew that I wanted to do that. So I figured if I'm going to go and play college football, I got to get ready for the season. So I graduated in May, and I knew I had to figure out some kind of training routine so that I'm prepared for the upcoming season. And so at St. Louis School, there was a guy by the name of Micah Matsuzaki, okay? And Micah was basically a football stud at St. Louis. He was an all-state wide receiver who was 8 years older than me that eventually played at BYU and had a successful career there and actually had tryouts in the NFL. And so one day I had the courage enough to ask Micah, as I see him training, I said, hey, Micah, I'm going to be going to Menlo College in the fall. Can I train with you? And he kind of looked at me in kind of this awkward pause, and he said, all right, I'll let you come train with me. We'll train together under one condition. We're working out 6 days a week, 2 hours a day, and if you miss one session, that's it. We're done. We're not training together. And so for me, I'm thinking I want to enjoy my summer. I'm thinking to go 2 to 3 days a week, and this guy's saying 6 days a week, and I'm like, well, if he's working full time, he's a HPD, and he's working overnight shift, and he's coming straight from working overnight to train. If he's going to commit to do that for free for me, then I should do it. So I encouraged another friend of mine who's going to play college football. Let's do this. And so I said yes. And for that whole summer, we trained together. And so let me give you the schedule of what training was. It was 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. And Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday was typical training. Was we go to the weight room, lift weights. We go to the field, do wind sprints, agility runs. We catch passes, all that stuff. The typical things you would do training for a football season. But Wednesdays and Saturdays were different. Okay, so what we would do is we would meet at St. Louis School, and then we'd all pile into Micah's truck, and he would take us down Wailea Avenue to Wilhelmina Rise. Anybody know what Wilhelmina Rise? Everybody, Wilhelmina Rise, right? So for those of you who don't know, Wilhelmina Rise, it's a street that starts on Wailea Avenue, and it's a vertical street that goes straight up. It's about a mile long and about 600-foot elevation height. And this is what we did on Wednesdays and Saturdays. He said, we're gonna go here, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna run Wilhelmina Rise. He's like, I don't care how slow you go, but you have to run. And the only grace that he gave us was like, okay, but there's going to be intersecting streets that go through Wilhelmina Rise. For safety purposes, at the street, you can walk. But as soon as you hit the sidewalk, you got to run. And I'm like, this guy's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, look, it's very daunting. If you look at Wilhelmina Rise, it's super daunting. And so, but the thing was, he was going to do it with us. So we had no excuse not to do it. This guy's older than us. So can you imagine we're running up this hill, and if you ever run up a vertical hill, probably within 4 or 5 minutes, the lactic acid starts to build in your legs and starts to fill up in your muscles, and your quads, your legs, you feel like it's going to explode. And you learn real quick that when you run, usually you run on your toes. Well, you can't run on your toes going up a hill because you're going to fry your calves. And so you really have to run flat-footed where your heel and your toes touch at the same time. And you're running up this hill, and of course we're doing it at 11 o'clock in the morning, so it's blazing sun. And our heart is pumping out of our chest. It's like 160, 170 beats per minute. And you're just running up this, and it's just, you got all these negative thoughts running in your head, like, why am I doing this? There's no way I'm going to come back and do this again. And I remember one time, people would look at us and think we were crazy trying to run this hill. And I remember one time I see this homeowner is watering his grass, and we're running up this hill, and he's looking at us, and he's like, what are you guys training for the fire department? What's going on? And I thought it was kind of a real Hawaii thing to say, right? They think that we're training for the fire department. But it would take us about 18 to 20 minutes to get to the top of the hill. And even though when you finish, you thought you felt like relieved that you're done, but you can't even like smile and appreciate it because you're like, your head's spinning, you're nauseous, your heart's still pounding. You literally feel like you're drunk up there. And it took us like 15, 20 minutes to decompress and come back down. But we would do this consistently 2 times a week for almost 3 months before the season. And what I realized, of course, running this hill, Wilhelmina Rise, of course, we had the benefits, the physical benefits, the strength in our legs and the endurance and all that stuff. But it wasn't until later into that upcoming season, my freshman year, when we're playing, and it's the fourth quarter. And if you're playing the whole game, and everyone knows you're playing the whole game, the fourth quarter, everyone's tired. But what I would remember in the fourth quarter was I would always go back to running that hill, Wilhelmina Rise. And what I realized was, even though I feel tired now, this is nothing compared to what I felt running that hill, And so that perspective gave me an edge. And I think that gave me an edge that was so critical that I needed, that was so helpful. And what Micah was teaching us was he was the Obi-Wan Kenobi with this, right? He was teaching, it wasn't just the physical. The physical part was probably 10% of it. The 90% of it was the mental, right? He was building the mental resilience within us that we needed. And so every summer for my whole college career, we'd come back and we'd do the same training routine. We'd run the hill. And so going into college, I ended up starting my freshman year and starting all through college. And after graduating, I had the opportunity to play professional football in the Arena Football League. So for 5 years, I got to play in different states and get paid to play a game I love. And this local boy from Hawaii got to experience, many different states around the world. I was living mostly in the South, and that was a transformational experience for me. And so to kind of bring this back, in 2002, I had the opportunity where 2 NFL teams flew me up for tryouts. And unfortunately, I didn't make the team. But for me, it kind of gave me a signal that I looked back at all the work I put in. And I looked at it, I was like, wow, if you look at it, I'm at the top 1% of my field in the world. And I look back 6, 7 years before, I was a guy on the sidelines that couldn't even get into my high school team. And what that kind of told me was, I brought it back and I give all the credit to what I learned on that hill, Wilhelmina Rise. So you can see where I kind of have a special connection to the word rise. And so what that hill taught me was a couple things, right? There was a formula, if we're talking about the theme rise and about going from one location to a higher location and going to an upward trajectory. That hill taught me this formula. It taught me that number one, right? In order to rise, we need to, number one, we need to get out of our comfort zone. Number two, we need to do hard things, right? Whatever it is that you're backing away from wanting to do, that's probably the thing that you need to do. Number three, we need to do it consistently. And number four, we need to do it for a long enough period of time. And that was the formula that I learned from Wilhelmina Rise. And after my football playing career is done, I feel like I've used that same formula when coming back home and started my business in 2007. And again, in 2016, when I had the idea for Rise High, I felt that, hey, how do we help reduce the limiting beliefs that sometimes hold our kids back from doing amazing things? And how do we show that our kids here in Hawaii can and are capable of doing amazing things, like being able to, if they want to live in Hawaii, they can actually create and build their desired dreams and outcomes in business, whatever they want to do here in Hawaii, so they don't have to move away to Vegas or Utah. They can do it right here and live and thrive here. And so as Garrett mentioned, what we do is we share perspectives of Kama'aina creators, entrepreneurs, change makers. And we want to do is we want to share their stories. And of course, we want to celebrate their wins, but we also want to showcase their obstacles and challenges, because I think that's so critical. And by doing this and actually putting it into our school system, we believe that we can then show that the path they want to go may not be easy, but it's possible. And if they realize that it's possible, then amazing things can happen for them. So that's my personal story of Rise. With that said, I want to bring up a couple of our guests here. And when Noah asked me to do this, he asked me if I can bring a couple guests. And these two people I thought of right away. And the reason why I thought of them was I felt like they symbolize the meaning of starting at a certain level and going up. They came from very humble beginnings, one from Hilo, one from Kahalu, and they've both excelled in the world of fashion, and both creativity as well as entrepreneurship. And I felt that was fitting that we bring them up today. So I want to introduce the first person. We've got this female from Hilo. It's funny, her mom wanted her to be a radiologist, and she started at Kapiolani Community College. And she tried that for a little bit, and she's like, no, that's not my thing. And she kind of bucked the trend and went opposite, and she started her own brand. Some of you are familiar with her brand, Lex Breezy Hawaii. They got 2 locations, one in Kailua, one in Ala Moana. And it's been blowing up. From a small little thing at Mary Marnock to now she's got 2 brick and mortar stores and killing it online too. She's got 2 locations, running 15 employees, doing amazing things. So I want to bring up Alexi Akiono. Come on up. All right, and then our next guest, if you guys been in Hawaii long enough, you guys recognize this brand. I feel like I'm a walking billboard for this brand. I'm wearing the shorts right here. People know Fitted. If you ever see their work online and you've been to their store, there's always a huge demand of what they do. And I always feel like Keola is one of the leaders when it comes to being able to merge Hawaii's authentic, Hawaiian culture within fashion today. When everyone is going right, he's going left, and he's really a trendsetter in terms of fashion in Hawaii. So I want to bring up Keola Raposo. All right. Yeah, go ahead. So let's do this. Lexi, when you think of the theme here is rise, right? What do you think of, and how does that relate to your personal journey?
Well, I think rise is, and I looked it up on Google. So what I read was rise means to get up after you've been knocked down, to stand up, to grow, and to be better. So I feel like when I think about rise, I feel like it's personal to me. Whether it was when I was little and, my family were going through things, when I moved to the Big Island, in high school, I feel like there was a lot of times where you're put in situations that it's tough to get out of. It's tough to see the other side, and you feel down. And I feel like all those times led me to rise up and to be better, and not to let any of that struggles and trials in my life dictate where I need to go in my future. So I felt like it's a lifelong journey of rising up and growing and being better. And even to this day, I struggle with that. I feel like self-doubt, people on the outside. So it's really a lifelong journey of continuing to rise and being better than who you were. So I think that's really personal for me, because that helps me become the person that I am today, and in a better space than I am, long time ago. So.
Thanks, Lexi. Ola, so like for your journey, right? Starting off working 3 jobs at Chevron, interning at Tory Richards, and going to fashion technical school at HTC, right? I mean, I know your personal story. You mentioned how you were pretty much the only guy in the fashion technical school studying, how to create garments. It was mostly all female garments, and a lot of your friends are looking at you like, Ola, what are you doing making women's clothing back when you're 19, 20 years old, right? That's where you started, right? So for you, when you hear the theme rise, and seeing where you started there, back when you just was starting to figure out how to design and sew all that stuff, to where you are now, how does that connect in your journey, the theme?
Aloha, everybody. First of all, thank you guys for coming. This is crazy. So for me, it is mostly about building confidence within the societal norms. Where I grew up, it's mostly like local boy tropes and being sucked into certain environments that's not conducive to being a productive human. So I always felt that I wanted to be a productive human, so how can I be productive with all of these trappings? And how I was able to combat that was to build a skill set or build cushion around me so that those things wouldn't affect me. And being around, the things, I grew up in the 90s and the early 2000s, and late 90s, being a drug dealer, growing up where I grew up was the thing, right? How big your truck was, how fat your chain was. And I see it's still prevalent. I call it local boy tropes. It's like, you know, like you want to be the dopest kid on the block.
The anti-bango shirt for me.
It's the anti-bango shirt, yeah. So I wanted to form a dialogue within myself to build confidence. And how I did that was I tricked myself to embrace being naive, almost like force being naive, so that I wouldn't allow my close circle, who are the most influential, to steer me in the wrong direction. So that's kind of how I sort of been able to build these mechanisms within myself to keep my goal and my path ahead of me.
Someone's playing mind games on yourself.
Pretty much, yeah. I'm good at that.
I wanna bring this back to like early on for both Lexi and Ola. Lexi, like for you, the traditional path was what mom wanted, right? Radiologist is a pretty good job, right? But what happened at Kapilani Community College? How come you didn't go that route?
To be honest, it was my senior year in high school, and I was doing 4 hours a day sitting and watching radiologists, and I couldn't connect with it. It was like I was told to be there. And when you grow up with strict parents, all I could wait to do was get out of the house. So my parents were really strict growing up, and that's what their path they wanted to, and all I wanted to do was do opposite of that. So I had to know that I had to make my own path and do things exactly what my mom said not to do, because that was actually what really fueled me, because I didn't want to listen to my mom, and it's tough.
Not listening to your parents was the catalyst to your success. That's pretty cool. Now, real quick, we talked about this. When you started, you initially started in the fashion career as a model, right? And then you wanted to do your own thing, but you battled with a common thing that a lot of creatives have is imposter syndrome, right? And so, how did you feel? Why, and how did you overcome that?
I think we still go through it. And I believe that when we are being creative and we're in just a different path than what we're told to do, it requires us to, like you said, step out of your comfort zone, but really stay focused on your end goal. And for me, that's what I feel like I'm learning to do. And everything there's like not a destination, and that's what I'm learning. I feel like we've learned like there's a destination to success, but it's really just this lifelong journey of being a creative and continuing to push your boundaries and continuing to better yourself. So that's what I think I love most about being an entrepreneur, is that we're continuing to grow every single day, and there's no destination or end goal. You have to just continue to push yourself. So that's how I feel I get out of imposter syndrome.
Continual learner.
Yeah.
Love it. Ola, so I know for me personally, your story resonates a lot with me because, we're similar age. We kind of grew up in that local boy environment, and fanny pack, gold chain, slippers, all that stuff.
I still love that stuff.
Yeah. Who doesn't? But one thing I resonate with you, I think for me personally, I look back in high school, I was so worried what my friends thought of me. And I would kind of just play it safe because I was too scared of putting myself out there. And if it didn't work out, of course, what's going to happen? You're going to get ragged, you're going to get teased, people are going to criticize you. And at 15, 16 years old, that was the worst thing ever, right? God forbid you get teased by your friends. But for you, when you look at the context of what you're doing when you graduated, you knew that you wanted to go into fashion design. And, again, you're working at Chevron, the night shift, and it was an old boys club there. And you took a class at HCC. Maybe you can kind of explain it, but you took a class at HCC, is Fashion Technical School, right? And we talked about how, it's basically majority all females in the class, and you were creating women's fashion. But you had to do homework, and you had to bring it back to Chevron. And I'll let you tell the story, but one thing that resonated with me was you having the courage to put blinders on what your friends thought of you, because you knew what your end goal was, and you knew that you weren't going to let them influence you. So Maybe you can, I thought that was a great story. Maybe you can share a little bit about your time working at Chevron and taking that class.
First of all, I think the greatest thinkers in the world suffer from imposter syndrome. So I think that prefaces my thoughts on being naive or like forcing naivete. But anyways, yeah, so I grew up in a single mother home, my sister and I. My sister is a very productive human being as well. She was very, very smart. She was blessed with intellect. I was blessed with hustling or whatever it was. I cut corners. So I needed to work super hard, extra hard, to be able to pay for books and college fees. But like I didn't even think I didn't realize I had any type of critical thinking until I got to college, until I met, actually it was my high school economics teacher who taught me how to learn. So I applied some of that to my path, and I needed to pay for books. So I had 3 jobs at the time, and I was interning at Tory Richard, I was valeting in Waikiki, and I was working at Kaneohe Chevron. That was my high school job. And I remember thinking to myself that as long as I'm working and I'm going to school, I can't get into too much trouble. But as I started to find my path, so to speak, I was very inspired. My mom was a creative. My stepdad was a creative. So I spent a lot of time working free for them. And I just enjoyed making stuff. I just wanted to make stuff. So while I needed to work, I found myself balancing my schedule. I would have class in the morning. I would on like Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. On Tuesdays, I would work I would have class in the morning, and then I would work at Kaneohe Chevron from 2 to 10 at night. But from 8 to 10, I was the only person there. So I'd bring all my flats and my oak tags and all my patterns. But everybody would hang out there. Like Kaneohe Chevron was the spot. It was like ground zero in Kaneohe. So that's where everybody would come and just hang out and just, do local boy things. So while they were in the back drinking and smoking and doing I still had to run the register. But while I was running the register, I would also do my homework. And the boys would come in and be like, "Bro, what are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm doing my homework." He's like, "But it doesn't look like homework. Look like you're making dresses." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm making this skirt. It's a shift skirt. These are pleats." And they're like, "What are you talking about? Bruh, you think you're gonna, what are you trying to be?" And I was like, "Just trying to learn how to design." So I think that, I don't know if that resonates with anybody, but I grew up in a very masculine place where you had to be able to take care of yourself. You had to be able to, assert or else everybody just would run over you. So it was a really bold move to be able to, bust out my patterns while everybody's drinking and smoking in the back. So yeah, it was an interesting time. I pushed through. I was like, nah, it's all good. I'll take care of you guys when I make it. And the funny thing is none of them are around now. So.
Well, I love that story because, for you, the hard thing, we talked about doing the hard thing, was doing that, right? Being able to get ostracized by your friends, and but continue to do it, be disciplined with it, and do it for a long enough period of time. And I love, you said this before, you cared what your friends thought, but you didn't care enough to make you stop. Yeah. And I think that is an important lesson, especially for a lot of the creators in the creative field is being able to keep going in light of what people say. So I know I'm getting a couple looks here. We want to wrap it up. Before we do Q&A, Alexis, Ola, is there anything else you want to share about the theme or anything else that we want to talk about?
I just would like to say, Alexis actually went to HCC as well. So I was telling Gabe, I was like, wow, not bad for some HCC graduates, People like to look down at community college. I think community college is the shit. And it helped me.
It's more hands-on, so that's what, I think a lot of creators is
Sorry, Ara,
hands-on.
I love you.
So.
I see you. Ara, I love you.
Well, speaking of that, real quick, I want to add to is the theme is Rise, and Lexi is doing an amazing thing at our old college, HCC, helping other young designers and entrepreneurs rise themselves. So why don't you share about that?
Yeah, so last year, I guess when you get to a certain place, you want to start giving back, and you learn that that fills your cup so much, and it just brings you so much happiness and joy to give back. And that's always been my mission at Lex Breezy Hawaii, is to really inspire the next generation. So we started the Lex Breezy Scholarship at Honolulu Community College that helps provide funds to students in fashion technology program as well as cosmetology every year. So we're really proud of that, and just being able to give back to our keiki and the next generation and really show them that, like Gabe said, you can make it if you're here. You don't need to go to a very expensive school. I mean, if you have the money to do so, great, do that. But like Ola said, I come from a broken family. My mom didn't have much. My mom couldn't afford to send me to expensive school. I had to get FAFSA. I'm still paying off my loans. Hopefully I get it. I don't know. Biden tells me I don't have to pay for it. But, you know, you just use those struggles in the end to get to where you want to go. And don't let it define you. Don't let it stop you. And just use it as fuel. And that's also what I'm learning myself, is use everything that everybody's throwing at you, use it as fuel for success, because it's really up to you to design your future, and that's your power.
Right on. Awesome job, Lexi.